Gotta go. Yeah, I'll call you back. I'm with that realtor lady.
Hi, I'm Michele Replogle, and I am the host of the Realtor Lady podcast. And this podcast is an exploration of the real estate industry with the people who actually work in it. I talk with real estate agents from all across the U.S. We go over the similarities and the differences in our markets, all with the idea to better inform and give people a better idea of what's going on in the real estate market as it's changing. I also talk to vendors, lenders, and people who have other roles in the real estate community, all to better give you an idea of what's going on. Think of it as kind of like real estate commentary instead of sports commentary. And if that's something that interests you and you like to follow the real estate market, tell your friends you can't talk right now because you are with the Realtor Lady.
Hey there, it's Michele Replogle, your Realtor Lady. Can I just thank you for listening to my podcast? It's been a year and I have had such a blast. I enjoy this so much. Great conversations about real estate and how it ticks, and some really great guests talking about Santa Cruz and things that are coming to Santa Cruz, like some of the environmental programs. I've just had so much fun. But I did get some feedback. I heard from some people that while they like the podcast, they just don't have enough time to listen to it. So I thought maybe instead of a podcast every week, I would do one every other week. And that would give people time to listen to all their favorite podcasts along with mine. Because COVID restrictions have gotten the world kind of back up and running, they just don't really have the time to listen to a lot of podcasts like we used to. So I will be every other week now. And I will still be producing all the same great content. So please subscribe, like, share, and review. I'd love to hear from you if there's something that you want me to explore or somebody you'd like me to talk to. For this week, I am interviewing my local broker here, Santa Cruz County broker, Greg Mann with Santa Cruz Coldwell Banker Realty. And he talks about the shift in the market. Now, listen to it kind of carefully, because what he's really saying is, while we know the market is going to change with the interest rates rising and affordability going lower, the shift doesn't happen as quickly as the news cycle would lead people to believe. So when it actually happens and hits, it's going to seem all of a sudden, but we're actually watching very small markers change the market. So give it a listen, review. And by the way, if you want to get a hold of me, my information is in the show notes, or you can find me at Michele at Michele Sells For You. I'm on YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm pretty easy to find, I think, or you can just Google me. And I'd love to hear from you. Thanks. Today, my guest is Greg Mann, broker for Santa Cruz County with Coldwell Banker Realty. And today we are going to talk about the changing market, interest rates, and the effect on the market here in Santa Cruz and what we're seeing. But we have a bonus where Greg has connections throughout the area. So he's going to comment on what the Silicon Valley and Monterey are feeling as well, because we are also intertwined. We're going to touch on some changes to real estate, what Coldwell Banker is saying about that. So welcome, Greg. Please impart all of your wisdom.
Thank you for having me.
You're like, oh, wait, I don't have any wisdom.
Yes.
Wait, can we stop?
I forgot to mention.
I'm not very wise.
That's not my wisdom.
Yeah, that's not
my other briefcase. Hey, no, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's very topical right now. This, the theme of this particular podcast is well timed, as I think we're feeling the first sort of challenges, perhaps, of a transitioning market as we work with our buyers and sellers in these transactions in Santa Cruz County. And yeah, as Michele mentioned, right before I hopped on this podcast, I was in a Northern California regional managers meeting. And of course, the changing market conditions has come up, and it's come up from pretty much every manager across Northern California. had similar sentiment and the feels of what's happening and the agents' feedback from the transactions. And so, um, yeah, it does have there are idiosyncrasies that come along with being very connected to tech money in this particular region, as well as having properties which are coastal on the beach and surrounded by a lot of nature and with limited development potential. So those always historically have presented Santa Cruz County with idiosyncrasies, and those are highlighted oftentimes in these transitioning markets.
Well, yes. So all the idiosyncrasies, nature and beauty and the fun that you can have here is the asterisk to declining markets found in other areas that don't have that. So, because the demand here still, to me, as a buyer's agent, seems still very busy. My home inspectors are still 2 weeks out,
Yeah.
and I'm still scrambling to get. Now, what has changed, and I think is interesting, is the contract or the vendors I typically work with, the home inspectors and the termite guys that I work with on a regular basis, have been like, oh, let me fit you in. Like, oh, I need to make her happy. She stays busy. I'm
Right.
starting to get that, not because I'm so wonderful, but it's like, oh, here's the person who kind of does the business all the time. And maybe I'll make sure that I get her in just so I stay on her radar. That has totally changed in the last 2 years for me. So,
Yes. And I think that goes along with conversation we've had previously about the sort of shelter in place, and hate to bring up anything that gives anyone any PTSD, but we often talk about an 80% of the business being done by 20% of the realtors. And there was some sentiment, and my feelings as an observer were that it went to more of a 90-10, at least
yeah.
briefly. And I think that fits into that, what you're describing, that you have sort of a consistency in your transaction frequency, which of course every realtor is looking for, as well as any inspector and anyone in a, hired for a job, the job ends, look for the next job, sort of a career or business. Consistency is highly desirable. So likes to attract
Yeah.
like. And people that identify, oh, this is a consistent professional who has established a pipeline that is something I would like to be involved in. And so, yeah, and I think that, maybe it has moved a little bit to closer back to a 20, percent doing 80%. But it's in recent years, that's been a notion. And yeah, I think you're right I bet you're not the only one feeling that is in a position like you're in with the frequency of the business that you're handling.
Yeah. I'm just starting to get really busy. So the changes that you guys talked about, did you mention what you thought was coming from Santa Cruz, or you just listened to what they thought was going to be happening?
I kept it a secret just for your ears only today. No,
I'm unveiling
frankly,
unveiling this today. I'm rolling this out today.
That's right. This is the great unveil. Yeah. So they're going to have to tune in, the realtor lady, and really find out what's going on in Santa Cruz County. But no, I like to use my ears a lot more than my mouth when I'm in meetings such as that. And as a result, what I was hearing was not that different from what we're experiencing here in Santa Cruz County. And what I'll say is this: one of my, after about 8 years of managing, you start to pick up on things that you can't really be trained. And one of the things that has come up is just sort of recognizing sounds that might be something that you could forecast as a result of having, heard them, and maybe you've heard it a few times and you're thinking, oh, it's a trend. And then you try to think, well, what does that mean? And so some of the sounds that I'm hearing are things like, I had 5 people saying they were bringing an offer on my listing, and then I ended up with like 1 or 2. And that is pretty self-explanatory. That didn't take 8 years to figure that one out. But that certainly has come up, that it's the case that, I'm getting this many disclosure package downloads, and I'm getting this many sort of verbal, threats of offer, threat being a funky word there, but that's often what we say. And then what did you end up with? And so what I like to sort of conclude with that, here you have a buyer that's viewed a property. They have their buyer's agent. They communicate with their buyer's agent. Hey, I think we really want to make a play on this. We like this place. And they decide not to. And, the buyer agent position has been a very challenging one in the last couple of years. And you're just, if anything is go time, it's full throttle. It's a very high speed transactional situation for buyer's agents. And so buyer's agents are jumping to the conclusion, go full throttle, and speaking with that list agent. And that list agent hears the sounds of, oh, it sounds like that's going to be an offer.
Oh.
And then a buyer changes their mind, right? Or what have you.
Well, yeah.
Right?
That could be a style versus a signal of the market, though, because I never do that.
Could be. But usually signals, it's like when I have a few different, very, very different agents reporting similar things such as that, then I kind of tick that to being a possible conditions situation, like a change.
So I've seen a few price reductions, but I've gone to look at the property and went, okay, they were dreaming anyway. It didn't seem based in reality. Yet there are properties that are still going very fast and multiple offers. There's still a lot of activity to the best location, the best condition. And what I've started to see is what we see, and when the market shifts a little bit, is that the properties that weren't that great, that were a little overpriced, or they didn't have the great location, they're the ones that start to signal or tingle something's changing. Not everything's being bought, but this core for, I don't know, I would say since 2013, this core of really great properties still does just fine. This whole outer, it's going to change, but the inner is priced well, nice house. And then we should talk a little bit about the upper end, who doesn't seem as concerned with the interest rates.
Right.
I've seen a little price reduction there, but I haven't seen a whole lot of, I don't see it dropping there. I've seen a little bit. What are your feelings about the upper end? Because that's usually a signal as well.
It's a great point to bring up. The leading market influencer in terms of what is impacting our market to have certain things come up would be interest rates rising, obviously. Interest rates went up faster than they pretty much ever have, I think.
So fast.
From 3 to 5 and 0 to 60 in 1 second, right? So that's a big factor. And where does that hit most? Well, the affordable range, right? And so the cash purchases are very much an element, especially near the Silicon Valley, especially on or near the beach. And so, we're seeing, upwards of about 40% of transactions are all cash. So we have about 60% of transactions should be impacted by these rising interest rates. And so the very high end typically doesn't involve financing. And as you come down towards the most affordable side of pricing, there's a direct correlation with the likelihood for financing, right? And so, I think that there's a delay in the market reaction with the high end due to the leading impact being from interest rates going up. And so I think that that's a consensus. I see it in, real estate articles, and that, there are certain elements that suggest market change. And, these are the things, and interest rates are one. And when interest rates lead the sort of various elements that can impact the market conditions, I think the affordable range is the most quickly impacted.
I spoke with a seller yesterday who has an older home that needs repairs in a pretty rural spot in Watsonville. And I said, because the interest rates are going up, you're going to have a bit of a harder time because your buyer is more impacted by the interest rates. And then, I talked to another client in Carbonera. They have a large redone house. They're looking at 2.5 all day long. Nobody cares about interest rates in that atmosphere, in my opinion. Now, we're not on the market yet. So right now I can say that to them. But for her, she goes, I know. And I said, it's just us down here at this end up paying for all the other people at the other end. And she was just like, okay, she wanted to know what the impact was. And that's her mark. And she's around 700,000.
Right. And, and I like to call that price sensitivity, right? And so cost of financing hitting harder in the more affordable price ranges causes that price range to have a more sensitive pricing element. And so that comes to play when you're strategizing. What is our ask price or list price? What is our marketing price? What price are we putting on all of the websites, the materials that advertise this to get people to want to come see it, to consider buying it, to going into the deep engaged conversations with their financial advisor? And so you have to create a perception of value, and that became more challenging as the cost went up for the average buyer in the price range. So it's a critical strategic element, and it also will directly impact the statistics as we gain about another month or two to then reflect on what are these prices going for, right? And one of the things that comes to mind is sale to list price ratio. So one of the measures we have, the two measures we look at frequently in transitioning markets are days on market. How long did it sit in an active status before it became contingent or pending? Another would be how much did it go for in comparison to the list price? And so the problem we often face in, I think, the real estate industry is we're advising these sellers in this more affordable range in a market such as the one that we're in, is that the recent trends have been, gosh, you can kind of leapfrog up from the last one and continue to, you almost bounce off the last price, because whatever that last one sold for, that's the new market value. And now it supports the appraisal report at that level. But now with this price sensitivity, as soon as these newer to market listings in this affordable range close escrow, now we have more statistics, and I don't think that they're going to leapfrog as high. And we have to be ahead of that to be the one that gets the offer or offers in as the seller and a seller's advisor.
Yeah, I was telling my buyers recently, you don't want a short escrow because you want these higher prices to come behind you and prove your appraisal. So short escrow,
Smart.
You might miss that one because everybody knows that one closed around the corner and it wasn't as nice and it sold for this and it's still pending. I'm going through this in San Jose right now. It's supposed to close today and everybody's holding their breath. And we're closing in 2 weeks because we're waiting for that one to close to prove that.
Right.
And then I started really understanding the beauty of a 30-day escrow. If your buyers really want that property, and we're stressing about that appraisal, that longer standard escrow may cover you. Now, what you're saying is we could be looking at that flip-flopping here fairly soon because they could be offering a higher price when the lower ones start to come in. So it could go the other way as well. Might be something to keep an eye out for.
Yes. And I think that we're really jumping into the conversation on the sort of leading edge of this transition, and that in about 30 days, 60 days, we'll have a lot of data to create a reality off of what we're trying to forecast now. Because I think that that's not too far into the future that we wouldn't have the stats. I think we're going to have them that soon to start drawing some conclusions, like what did just happen and where's that mean we're going now? Is there going to be a line that you can trust is going a certain direction as you try to forecast?
I mean, I'm starting to see it look a little bit like it did before the last crash, which I have no beliefs we're going into that at all, but the adjustable products are starting to come back and the loan products are starting to change. Yeah. But the lenders are a lot more careful. They're looking for a lot more down. It's not, no. But what's Silicon Valley saying? What are they seeing?
Well, number one, I want to reinforce your opinion that I agree that we have very different variables involved than the variables involved with the housing crash in 07, 08, 09. And therefore, if we had sort of an adjustment, even so to speak, which sounds much less drastic, of course, than a crash, it would be different variables compelling it to move that direction. And the range with which it would move would be different, anyway. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%. I don't think we're on the precipice of a big bubble. There are a lot of bubble, articles, and they're, attention grabbing. So the headline gets the reader. So there's that. I'm not saying that maybe there are regions that could be in more of a sort of a bubble. And I think that it's hard to speak to because we're in an area that is pretty durable when it comes to adjusting values, particularly when they're adjusting lower. And that durability has been an asset to the Santa Cruz region, and it's been an asset to homeowners in this region. And yet, it's not exactly the case in other regions. So yeah, Silicon Valley enjoys that as well. I mean, Silicon Valley has been a job center. It's, one of the biggest job centers in Northern California for sure. And jobs is one of the variables involved with, demand and supply, frankly. So Silicon Valley is echoing our sentiment that, I don't think we're on the precipice of a bubble. And yet they are feeling the difference when it comes to days on market. They're feeling the difference on just number of offers. And one of the interesting elements there that is common across this general area is, even if you just get one offer, which sounds funny, years ago, just one, but even if you just get the one offer and it does come in and it's higher than the list price, okay, great, for the seller, and perhaps you close and buyer really wanted it. That's the offer they made. They're fine paying it. They can afford it. But what's interesting is when you do just get the one offer, slowly but surely, these buyers are going to become more aware that perhaps there aren't other offers. Perhaps this is not as competitive. And so it'll be interesting to see, at some point, there are going to be buyers who are going to have to be the first to say, I really want all my contingencies. I don't know what's going to happen with the interest rate. And if it goes way up again really fast, that matters. Or if I don't explore the permit history or don't, understand certain conditions to the home, I want to be able to cancel or at least try to renegotiate. So it's, to me, I think what's interesting right now is like, who's going to be the first one to take the step to build an offer with those components that gets accepted because it was the only one. Hey, cat's out of the bag. That place only got one offer. Well, then why did I go so high and without any contingencies? So that is, to me, something that is applying it. That concept is across Silicon Valley, Monterey Bay areas. And it's interesting. It's a hurry up and wait. Which ones are going to be the first ones that the transaction went that way? And it was the only offer. And so, yeah, let's work with them. And, anyway.
I don't know. I'd say 2 to 3, and maybe loan would come back. I did talk to Greg Hales about that, and he said he saw loan contingencies coming back, but he didn't see the other stuff coming back.
It'll be interesting to see. Yeah. I mean, I think further, the more that the statistics come out, the more people can build a case for their position. And so over the course of time, we'll have more statistics and we'll see how much leverage that provides or affords buyers and their agents who are consulting with them that will look, the comps suggest, and what they're asking. And so it'll be interesting to see. I think you're right. I think the loan contingency, the sensitivity to rates and cost of money is unnerving and keeping people up at night. So locking a rate, not like when do you lock, all of that is such a thing right now.
I think that's going to be more important for the most part. I did have clients interested in a townhome that they wanted an as is. I mean, they're all known contingent offers over in Santa Clara, but this particular place, I just wasn't feeling it at all. It just was such a apartment complex that wanted to live like a condo. And I was just like, ugh. And luckily they didn't write on it, but I don't really still see the physical contingencies coming back because so many of the buyers just want to get in and they're okay with it. But the actual month to month is what worries them more. You're absolutely right, because that's what they have to really ultimately live with. They can go get that fixed and then that'll go away. But that payment comes due. And I had somebody go, well, they offered us a 4% fixed 30-year. And I'm like, take it.
Take it. Lock
Take
the
it.
rate.
She's like, but we can get a better rate. I was like, maybe you could, I don't know, but we're getting down to it. You need to grab it. And I think that's really attractive. That's where we all were before 2020. So
in that affordable range, and another thing will be cost of money. I mean, you can buy points to bring it down. And then it just comes down to a conversation of, how much liquidity does this buyer have? And if they aren't in a position where they have the liquidity to pay the down payment and closing costs and buy the rate down, then the conversation goes to seller credit, right? And so seller credits enable prices to potentially stay up higher, right? So there's an element to that. The other problem is buyers exhaust their funds due to cost of money. And they're trying to think about, well, if we do need to put this much money into this house because of the condition of it, and we have no money left because of the cost of money, then we might want to look further and get a better understanding as to exactly, hey, can we get a bid for that thing that needs repaired? And then it's higher than they think. And then they start to, so to be enabled to do that discovery, you need the investigation contingency. So personally, my opinion is I think that's a delayed effect of the cost of the money, is that they're going to start to think about what money they have to put into the place. And if they don't have enough liquidity after the close, then they're going to have to figure out, okay, we need to know really detailed what we need from the condition of this house to change and what that costs in order to make a good decision about whether we can afford this place. And that's to me, the push for the investigation contingency to potentially come back. And I think it's a little delayed, as it's a reality that hits a little bit harder slowly.
I hope so.
And
I fought for at least a couple days to do it. It's like, hey, we have a question about this. We need a couple days to go. And they were like, no.
Right. And I'll tell you what, and this is my manager hat on, sorry, but it's better for everyone if there's a contingency for the investigation, in my opinion. I think that too. And I think we're potentially on the precipice of people starting to settle in with how much they just spent and what they got. And then they see that this market may or may not be correcting or transitioning. And they start to sort of hyper focus on what did they get for the money. And there's a little bit of hindsight opportunity there. And gosh, it felt like we were pushed into this without really being able to see what we were getting. And so we have to be really careful. And as a seller in the risk management realm, at least if the buyer had an opportunity and even could cancel based on findings without repercussions, that's good for everyone.
It is. I don't see it really coming back, though.
I know, it's a scary one.
I haven't really run across very many buyers who are really that concerned. They're just trying to get in. Yeah. And the other thing, we should go back to jobs. My husband and I had a conversation at a stoplight, actually, in front of the office, and the bubble conversation come up. And it always does when we're kind of in traffic because of the amount of construction we saw today. We saw the building right next to Mission Hill is getting redone. I don't know if you saw the 3 guys hanging off the top of the roof today when you came in, and then downtown has a lot of construction. Then while we're sitting in traffic, we're seeing all these business vehicles go past and supplies. And I remember the last downturn, and when it really started looking bad, when my husband would come home and say, there's nobody on the road. There's nobody on 17. I'm the only service truck, or, he directly correlated it with the amount of people he saw on the road. And he goes, I can tell you it's going to be fine because it's crazy. He goes, what you see here is what I see every day, all the time. And they're busy. Of course, I always think they get paid by the hour because they drive really slow, but that's just me. I always think that when I'm behind a car, you must be getting paid by the hour because I want to get
Right.
there. I don't know what you're doing in your car, but I actually want to arrive there at some point in time. But that's just me.
And what's interesting is we're seeing gas surcharges hitting on some of the invoices from service providers and installation vendors, whatever. Yeah,
I actually heard. I actually was on a forum where there's agents charging their clients for their TC fees, passing those along.
yeah. It's what, there's risk with that.
I'm not interested in it, but I was completely blown away by it.
Yeah. I don't know how to even comment
that's just
publicly on that.
That's just the fee overload that we're going to see. But but then
right.
where I was going with the job thing too is while I understand you're seeing where people might be thinking how much they're paying, they're also looking. A lot of the professionals, especially over there, are getting pay raises to stay. People are, there is some worry that those people they have may go somewhere else. So they're actually looking at their income and feeling pretty good.
Inflation is, I think, the big core to this conversation.
Yeah.
7-8%, most inflation, just like interest rates, which is all, of course, directly correlated. The inflation jumped up higher than it's ever done in 40 years. I mean, jumped up faster, I should say, to a peak that I hope we're at. Anyway, and I think that's directly related to this. And so, you've got cost of living. And so people have to look more closely at their bills and what are they paying for? And like, hey, I'm a cord cutter, but all of a sudden I think I have Netflix, HBO, Disney Plus, Apple Plus, whatever the heck, everything else, Hulu. Wait a minute, I'm back to what I need to cut some of those out. And so you do that across your household expense sheet. And all of a sudden you're looking for opportunity in each of the avenues to save a little bit. Because gosh, the gallon of gas and the gallon of milk and the whatever, and can we do this ourselves? Can we find another way to get the same enjoyment or, improvement? Anyway, so I that inflation is just a big.
Well, that's a good point though, actually. As we move into the summer months around here, I'm going to do a cost of living video for my YouTube channel. And, I was kind of listing everything out and I was like, we grow some of our own food and you can do that here because of the weather. So yeah, the food costs more here, but you can actually grow your food or you can go catch it. Last night we had salmon and asparagus. We grew the asparagus and caught our own salmon. Now, granted, the gas to get that boat fired up was a lot, right? It's probably $50 a pound, but we do have the ability here to do so. So, okay, gas is high, but we can ride and walk. I mean, we can really get around this town without having to incur that. And energy.
Sure. It's a good point.
We don't get as hot or cold. We don't.
There you go. I mean, and those are some of the things that create durability of values in Santa Cruz County right there. Because you just touched on a couple of things, one being lifestyle and the enjoyment that I caught this fish. I grew this asparagus. It's very fresh. It tastes great. And I like that I spent time doing it. So whether or not you even saved, maybe broke even on the cost, the lifestyle enhancement that was gained and, all of that, which is facilitated by this area.
It's like the surcharge though. I mean, like, so you pay extra to live here, but then you get.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you kind of get what you pay for. The most cliche phrase of all time, perhaps. You get what you pay for. If you're going to pay more here, but then you're going to have that, right? You're going to have the ability to, if you ride your bike and your mountain bike. I mean, look around. I mean, if you like anything to do with the ocean, I mean, our clean air index on the average day is fantastic. Our water available is actually. We have quite a bit of water in these mountains, and that's a big deal. So a lot of these things create durability of values, which is very much relevant, tying back to our theme of this podcast that, Santa Cruz and what's changing in the marketplace, but what elements are causing this marketplace in Santa Cruz specifically to behave a little bit differently than other marketplaces. And for the most part, it's all positive. Thus, our prices tend to stay higher and you get what you pay for here if you take advantage of this area like you are, with the good soil, with the good growing conditions. Hey, it's not too hot, it's not too cold, and by the way, it's salmon season and we're going to go catch one and eat it. It's like, gosh, it was worth the money.
Yeah. We won't get into people live where they're politically aligned today. Uh, but I,
Which is a hot
but I,
topic. Red, blue, or
oh,
purple?
I know. So Santa Clara, they're kind of feeling it, but they're probably not saying it's an easier market by any means. I can't imagine it is. I don't know much about Monterey. I do know Monterey. I've been kind of studying it a little bit. Doesn't really do a members only. And if you're
Right.
watching a very short timeline on a listing, I noticed that the idea of actually being able to see a listing through your real estate agent beforehand at least gives you a little bit more time for investigation and kind of digestion of that listing, which I think takes a little of the heat off that that fast paced get to an offer.
Yeah.
But in markets that don't have that and still want that offer a week later, it seems hard.
Yeah, oftentimes, urgency creates anxiety, right? And so with less urgency, perhaps there will be less anxiety. And one of the things we enjoy is, this members only or coming soon, sort of a status for the listing. You have time to process sticker shock. You have time to process, okay, we understand the prices have been going up. This is up from the last one. That's the next best comp. But is that appropriate given the potential change in the marketplace? And so, at least you have time to process that. You have time to walk through perhaps with the contractor or something like that. Hopefully there are reports you can have the contractor analyze, and that directs the contractor to focus in on areas of the home. That's been a thing that's been a little bit more popular, is at least maybe have a walkthrough with the contractor, because more of our listings are having upfront reports, which is great, especially because we have such an urgent transaction cycle right now. And so at least you're afforded more information upfront, hopefully.
So you don't really have much of a prediction for the next 6 months before we wrap up here? How about through the
Hard to
summer?
commit.
What do you think?
Yes, through the summer. I think that summer is always good for Santa Cruz, no matter what. It's a beach town, right? So people are going to be here looking at it, and it's hard not to like it. And that's another one of the factors that creates durability with our values in Santa Cruz. I think that the recession talk is applicable to this conversation. We haven't really talked about the recession that probably is coming. The timing has been forecast for 2023. Now it seems that the forecast is more like late this year, right? And so when are they going to say it's going to be next, right? Are they going to back that up even closer to the summer, fall? And that's going to influence people that pull throttles that impact everyone, like interest rates, bank-to-bank lending, bond buying, all of that, because the brakes on a recession, like, okay, it's coming and we know it and it's okay. Maybe it's healthy on some level that hopefully people can endure recessions, and sorry. But that, they're going to pull throttles that ease the recession in and out, right? And the throttles that get pulled are going to be the thing that are going to hit us. And so it's going to be really relevant, I think, to forecasting our market conditions. What's the next article about the recession timing going to say? And I think that, no matter what the cost of money, as it's impacting our affordable range, it slowly but surely will impact the higher range, just because the people that might be paying all cash and might be able to afford the luxury properties, they're also often very careful with their money. And the stock market volatility makes you, when you're in that position, I think often think, whatever, real estate's safer, right? But if the stock market can mellow on volatility, well, you couple that with the cost of rates and all that, I think that there's still going to be a slow but sure impact in that higher end. And so what does that mean? Okay, well, I think we'll just go up more slowly in value. And that, at the end of the year, like right now, year to date, our sort of average appreciation is probably a higher number than it will be actually at the end of the year.
Right.
So the months following this month, May, particularly June, July, all of a sudden it's like, it's not feeding that end of year statistic to be so high. And so I don't think we're going to go down per se. We'll just go up slowly rather than this crazy skyrocket upward trend.
Which is also common to spring.
That's right. Yeah, spring. Yeah, very much so. I mean, spring has sprung, and it's kind of like the spring energy popped, and now it's done. A lot of the pent-up demand, even, or that is a long-term sort of pent-up demand, has been spent on some level. And so I think that that's going to have a play too. I we'll get more inventory, but the demand isn't as strong to meet the supply increase, right? So that, of course, in and of itself will create a higher days on market. And as these stats become more, the data becomes available to analyze. Smart people look at the data. Smart people make informed decisions. People with the money, often they've made good decisions to get the money that they have to spend. And therefore, they're going to be looking at the newest information, and it's going to be there to read that things have changed. And so they'll make different decisions, I think. And that's going to be within a couple of months. And so I think that buckle your seatbelt a little bit, but it probably will be a soft feel.
I'm starting to get those calls. Well, I've got cash and I'm from Fresno and I want to spend $900,000 and be by the beach, and starting to get those calls because the market's going to tank. And
Right.
It's like, I've been doing this a while, still haven't seen that, but okay.
Right. I don't know if it's going to change that drastically, but maybe you could get a condo that you could like stroll to the beach from.
Yeah. I've also had to, I have a few more trust sales and tenant occupied property sales because, well, people have passed away and things change, but I've had to tell people, if you're waiting on somebody, I want you to know that person could be costing you money. And if you're trying to tiptoe around them, or your attorney is a little busy right now and can't get to your paperwork, I would urge you to talk with them later. I mean, now than later, because they're eroding your price, in my opinion, if we go on later in the year. And I think your time is now. But I always like buyers to shop in the summer because it seems to me a little cooler. The buyers get distracted. They go on vacation. They go out, the whole fervor is usually not as much as in spring. So I would say overall, maybe the summer will be kind of nice. Maybe we'll have that little bit of a soft landing. We'll have a little bit more inventory and people can, kind
of a breather, which I think that the gas has been spent. And I think people are out of breath. I think they need to breathe. And that's, influenced by market conditions and interest rates and whatever, but it's also just humans. Humans are tired.
Realtors are tired. When I talk to them, I go, even people I don't know, they'll call me, like for a referral, and they'll say their name, and I go, "So how you doing?" They're like, "Oh, I'm so tired."
Yes, it's a sentiment, and for goodness sakes, we know why. I mean, it's very easy to say, "Yeah, you should be."
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so.
Well.
Yeah, and no, I'm with you. I think summer will be nice. I think that, when there are alternative properties available, because there's more inventory, then, the emotional stakes can be a little more relaxed because they have another one and another one to look at. And
with buyers in Santa Clara, it's rough. It's no contingencies, and it's even the open houses are far. Sometimes you can't even find parking for them.
Yeah.
But there's 10 more next week to go look at.
That's right.
We're here. I have buyers right now. They saw one, but I don't think they can come down and look at it this weekend. And so there was one.
Yeah. Scarcity.
Yeah.
Right. It's an element.
Well, I thank you for coming on. Always fun to talk. And I'll have you come on. Maybe I'll have you come on at the end of the summer. We'll talk about, we'll commentate on the what summer actually did once your kids are back in school. you have some time.
I like it.
Awesome.
Let's do it. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's the Realtor Lady, Michele Replogle. Is there a subject you would like me to explore in real estate or maybe about Santa Cruz? Feel free to contact me. I'd love to hear from you. Or if you'd like me to help you buy or sell real estate, that's also something that I do. You can contact me on Instagram, Live the Santa Cruz Life, or on my website, michellesellsforyou.com. That's with one L. My Facebook page, Live the Santa Cruz Life as well. Or check out my YouTube channel, Live the Santa Cruz Life with Michele Replogle, and my email, michelle@michellesellsforyou.com. I would love to hear from you.